Well, as I talked about in a past segment, Trump's trial is really underway now with opening statements happening today, the first witness being brought up by the prosecution, and that means I'm going to be breaking down what happened today in trial with our legal expert, Aaron Partners. But first, I want to show you some clips of Trump every single day after trial and before trial, but afterwards he'll storm out and he's all upset and grumpy and he'll rant about what went on. And listen, you almost understand why he's so angry. This is the first time, maybe in his entire life, that he's seen real accountability for his wrongdoing. And so he's having to face his nightmare, which is accountability. And in court today, he's actually seeing things get started, not just jury selection, but the real deal. And the case being laid out by the prosecution. And that is bad for him. Before I get to the first clip of him after he left the courtroom, I want to show Rachel Maddow on MSNBC giving her assessment of how Trump looked.
I would say that he seems thinner than I have seen him in the past. He seems considerably older, and he seems annoyed.
I'm going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button plus the like button as well and the alert bell so you get notifications. Back to it.
Resigned, maybe angry. He seems like a man who's miserable to be here. And again, that's, you know, I'm no body language expert, and this is just my observation, but he seemed old and tired and mad.
So an absolutely brutal assessment of Donald Trump there. Now, before I get to updating you on what took place today in this criminal trial of a former president, absolutely crazy stuff. Like I said, it's just Trump's routine now where he comes out and he screams at reporters and he's all upset and he storms out of the room once things wrap up. And here he goes after Michael Cohen, which is very much not allowed to go after witnesses while the trial's going on publicly. This would be witness intimidation. Here's this.
Now, when are they going to look at Pomerantz and what Pomerantz did? Because that's bad stuff. And when are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? He got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying. And when are they going to look at that?
Okay, so getting a little confused there. Cohen did at the last trial thing. He's a liar. That's my point. Again, that's a violation of his gag order. It seems. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to, as the gag order states, target and attempt to influence witnesses. And there he's doing just that. Then he made a silly claim about his civil fraud trial.
But the point here is that the judge had no idea what was happening. And this is the same judge that 2 months ago made a ruling that shook the world. It shook the world because everyone knows going to that trial I did nothing wrong. And over here, I did nothing wrong also. This is a Biden witch hunt to keep me off the campaign trail.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Really? Trump supporters, really? You think that it's more likely that sleepy Joe Biden was able to coordinate one of the greatest conspiracies, both to steal a United States election without any evidence being caught or found of that scheme, and then after that, because apparently he can't just do what he did last time and steal the election with Dominion voting machines or something. Now he had to do a new way of stealing the election, which is to coordinate in different jurisdictions, different prosecutors, in front of different grand juries, and a civil case and a criminal cases, this bonkers scheme to incorrectly persecute Donald Trump. That's more likely, that involves hundreds of people who would have to not reveal that this is going on. Or the fact that Trump is dealing with so many legal issues is a sign that maybe he's violated the law a couple times. Maybe that's it and he should be held accountable. Because why? Law and order. Nobody's above the law, not even the dear orange leader. One more clip, then we'll talk about what went on today in trial.
Very unfair. The judge is conflicted, as you know. It's very unfair what's going on. And I should be allowed to campaign. And whoever heard of this, he got indicted for that? People in the court just said to me, I can't believe it. This is the case.
Yeah, I'm sure people in the court were saying that to him. It reminds me of a past time where he told a story of law enforcement officers crying whenever they had to usher him into court. And then someone came out, I think it was an officer, and said, I didn't see any of that. But Trump just keeps repeating those same talking points. So now I want to bring in our legal expert, Aaron Parnas. I teased that you'd be on today to give a sense of what's going on now that things are really underway. What was big about today?
Well, yeah, Luke, today was a very big day because for the first time in American history, a former or current president stood in front of a jury of his peers and faced criminal charges. Now, up until today, we've dealt with jury selection, a lot of preliminary issues, but today was the day where opening arguments began, where both the prosecution and the defense essentially laid out their roadmap of what they expect the evidence will show in the Trump case. So the prosecution went up first for about a half hour and talked about a overarching conspiracy and cover-up that was led by Donald Trump to catch and kill negative press hits about him in advance of and during the 2016 election, with the ultimate goal of winning the 2016 election, or as prosecutors put, to interfere with the 2016 election. So they laid out what their facts or their evidence is going to show. They spoke about the testimony of a number of witnesses, including David Pecker, including Michael Cohen, and Stormy Daniels. Then Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's attorney, went up and gave his opening argument, which lasted about 20 minutes. Now, his opening argument focused on a tale completely separate of the prosecution's. Blanche really focused on the fact that Donald Trump, in his opinion, did nothing wrong, that these charges should have never been brought, that Trump is completely innocent, and really harped on the fact that Donald Trump is a former president, is a successful businessman, and at the end of the day, these charges amount to just 34 pieces of paper, 34 documents that Donald Trump did not have essentially direct control over. The opening argument lasted about 20 minutes. And it's really important to remember when thinking about the defense's argument versus the prosecution's is that the prosecution has the burden of proof in this case. The prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump is guilty of these crimes. The defense doesn't have to do anything. If Todd Blanche wanted to, he could have just sat next to Trump the entire trial, never uttered a word, and theoretically, he could still be found not guilty because an individual is presumed innocent the moment they walk in a courtroom and until the prosecution proves beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's not surprising to kind of see Blanche just say the prosecution's argument is fake news or is wrong, rather than putting up his own kind of version of events.
Right. And I was hearing a good bit of reporting coming out of the courtroom about the first witness that the prosecution called, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was David Pecker. Can you explain how he plays into this, knowing that he wasn't directly involved in what is at the center of this being the Stormy Daniels payment?
So David Pecker, if you don't know him, was the head of the National Enquirer's parent company and worked directly with Donald Trump, according to the prosecution, to kind of undergo these catch and kill schemes where the National Enquirer would look out for negative press hits about Donald Trump and would work with Trump and Michael Cohen, presumably, to kind of quash those negative stories so that they never kind of saw the light of day. And Pecker, being kind of the lead on the Enquirer side, was in direct communication with Cohen on a number of issues. So that's why Pecker is important. He began his testimony today with just overview of kind of general matters of where his stance was in the company, his relationship to the Enquirer, his relationship to Trump. Pecker only testified for, I believe it was only about 15 or 30 minutes today because the court broke early for the Passover holiday this evening. So Pecker is expected to take the witness stand again tomorrow and potentially even on Thursday and speak more about the relationship between him, the National Enquirer, Trump, and ultimately these catch and kill schemes.
Got it. And can you explain, as we've talked about in the past to the audience, what would be illegal potentially about this scheme? Because obviously, inherently by itself, it's not necessarily legal to pay someone to purchase the rights to their story and then never run that story. What is potentially illegal about this broader effort that then directly involves Stormy Daniels?
Yeah, so Luke, ultimately falsifying business records in the first degree is the charge that Donald Trump is facing. And in New York, to prove that, you have to show that a criminal defendant like Trump falsified a business record with the intent to commit a fraud, a felony. And in this case, the intent was to break campaign finance law, or in other words, to interfere with the 2016 election. The ultimate intent of these catch and kill schemes that Donald Trump engaged with David Pecker in were to suppress stories so that the negative stories of Trump never saw the light of day, so that they wouldn't impact Trump's standing in the public eye, and ultimately so that he could win the 2016 election. So prosecutors allege that they engaged in these schemes, and Trump ultimately falsified these business records in furtherance of his ultimate goal of violating campaign finance law and winning the 2016 election. Now, Pecker is not charged with the crime. He did not necessarily commit a crime because, as you said, Luke, there's nothing wrong with kind of paying individuals off in an effort to suppress stories, but it becomes illegal when you do so and you lie about it in a document, you falsify a document with the intent to, for example, defraud the public by committing a campaign finance violation.
Got it. And then I know a big part of this will be linking Trump to these efforts. And we'll see how that's fully done with the Stormy Daniels story specifically. But in establishing this pattern, David Pecker is being discussed about his involvement in the Karen McDougal story, another one of Trump's alleged affairs. And this audio was reported on that I want to play for the audience and for you, Aaron, and then we'll respond. Was obtained of Trump talking with Michael Cohen about this effort to suppress a different story that's not at issue here, but again establishes that Trump was in on the discussions of how to suppress these stories and the broader schemes. And this relates to, again, former Playboy model Karen McDougal and Trump's affair with her.
What's up, Mike?
Great poll, by the way. Seen it. Great poll.
Making progress.
Big time.
And you guys are good guy.
Oh, Pastor Scott?
No, Pastor Scott. What's happening?
Oh, no.
Can we use him anymore?
Oh, yeah. 100. No, you're talking about Mark Burns. We've told him
Well, I don't mean that. Mark Burns, can we use him?
No.
Richard Lefrak, I'm sorry, Richard Lefrak just called. He just had, we have a chance, he had an idea for you.
Okay. So we got served from the New York Times. I told you this. We were regarding to unseal the divorce papers with Ivana. We're fighting it. Kasowitz is going to
never be able to get that done.
Never. Kasowitz doesn't. They'll ever be able. They don't have a.
Give me your code, please.
They don't have a legitimate purpose.
And you have a woman that doesn't want to unseal.
Correct.
So you've been handling.
Yes, and it's all.
It's been going on for a while.
For about 2-3 weeks now.
All you have to do is delay it for.
Even after that, it's not going to ever be opened. There's no purpose for it. Told you about Charleston. I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
Funding. Yes, and it's all the stuff. All the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be.
Gets hit by it.
Correct. So I'm all over that, and I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be.
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay the cash.
No. I got no.
All right. So Trump's attorney.
Yeah. So again, we're just at the very beginning, but because David Pecker was more involved in the Karen McDougal story, it relates to him being the prosecution's first witness. And talk about how the prosecution is going to attempt to make sure that Trump is obviously linked to these efforts and it wasn't something going on independently from him.
Yeah, so a few ways. The first primary way is that they're going to have recordings, kind of like the one you just played, where you have kind of Donald Trump showing knowledge of what's happening in these kind of schemes. You're also going to have another way. Michael Cohen himself is going to be testifying. Now, it's interesting, Michael Cohen has been convicted of a federal crime that included lying. So his credibility is a bit shot, but these recordings will back up his testimony. And then you're also going to have kind of circumstantial evidence of inferences where kind of prosecutors are going to make the argument that Donald Trump was the head of the Trump organization, was the candidate running for president, and Michael Cohen was his personal attorney. Trump would not have known, or none of this would have happened but for Trump knowing or even directing the payments and the catch and kill schemes. So they're going to prove it in a number of ways. The evidence is going to be laid out very meticulously over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So stay tuned.
And they have checks, reimbursement checks to Michael Cohen, right, with Trump's signature on them?
They do. And ultimately, that kind of goes to the fact that many legal experts think this is a pretty open and shut case, because at the end of the day, this is a documents case. And Luke, documents don't lie.
But I keep hearing from Trump that every legal expert thinks this is a horror show. Oh my goodness. Aaron, where can people find you?
On all my social platforms, just at Aaron Parnas.